And we are live from the LGMA Multi-Level Action Pavilion. And thank you to the audience that is present here, and at the same time also to those that have tuned in the Hopin platform. And the session today is particularly interesting because we have all the speakers live here, which is quite exciting after the year of COVID-19. And at the same time, it's touching upon the importance of transportation in addressing climate change and not only about decarbonizing transport, but also make it more equitable and sustainable for all. And it's very urgent not only to raise the ambition, but also to connect and create the gap and bridge the gap between ambition and implementation. So before I introduce to you the panelists, I would like to share with you some information about ECLAY and also our program, so that we can, you can appreciate about our work, but also at the same time to show the partnerships that we have in place, so that unfortunately we couldn't all accommodate them all in on our website on our stage today. So ECLAY is Local Governments for Sustainability, is a global network of cities and regions. We are active in more than 125 countries and we promote sustainable development. Essentially, the organization promotes and influences policies, and at the same time fosters collective action through knowledge exchange and capacity building for accelerated action. In the next slide, you will see that mobility is one of the thematic areas of work, and our programmatic work highlights two main pillars, the ecomobility and the ecologistics. Ecomobility is based on a very simple idea about prioritization of the most sustainable modal transport, walking and cycling, and public transport, and light shared electric vehicles. And the ecologistics part is the counterpart for mobility for goods, and all this is enshrined within the framework of avoid, shift, and improve. Avoid unnecessary travel, shift to sustainable mobility, and improve the efficiency of fuel and vehicles and of the system as a whole. And of course, all this is we look at mobility as a system, so we look also at the integration of the different mode of transport. In the next slide, you will see some more highlights of some of our projects. The Ecomobility Alliance is a leading network of ambitious cities that is led by innovators and visionaries, and supports experts and businesses committed to building a sustainable mobility future. And we essentially transfer experiences, identify proven methodologies, and inspire action. In the next slide, you will see another project that we are partnering with, along also with the UITP and other organizations, and it's in coordination with, coordinated by UMI and Wuppertal Institute, is a European funded project called Solutions Plus, and essentially it's working in developing and emerging economies and addresses urban mobility and sustainable electrification in urban areas. It's a Horizon 2020 call, and it has a very large consortium of 46 partners and highlights, and with also 116 associated partners. What is very exciting about this project is about the 10 living labs in different cities like Kathmandu, Kigali, Quito, so a bit all over the place. In the next slide, we will see another upcoming project that is the TumiIBAS mission, and essentially it's also addressing the larger cities in emerging and developing economies, and essentially has very ambitious target of supporting 20 deep dive cities and then to upscale to 500 cities with the target in 2025 to have 100,000 IBAS ready to be procured. And essentially there are three different pillars on the global and a city-specific coalition on the roadmaps for technical assistance in the deep dive cities and the upscaling and dissemination in the Mendes cities. And UITP and ECLAY are leading on some of the components of this upscaling and dissemination component on the Mendes cities. In the next, and the project is funded by the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, and it's led by GIZ, TUMI, and the NWRI. In the next slide, we are moving towards the urban freight and logistics with the Ecologistics project, low carbon freight for sustainable cities. So we will hear an experience from the city of Manizales today, and it's a German it's funded by the German Ministry for Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety, and it looks into creating an enabling environment for urban freight planning and implementation as well in 9 different cities in Argentina, Colombia, and India. In the next slide, we will see also our community of practice on ecologistics, and this is shared by the city of Taiyuan, and we will have the opportunity to hear from them as well. And it's essentially a community of first movers, cities that and partners are committed to bring sustainable urban logistics into our reality and future. And this topic is particularly relevant now because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the increased amount of e-commerce, for instance, and the importance of supply chains. And we will have the opportunity to hear about that as well in a few minutes. So thank you very much for staying with me on this tour on all our different projects. But of course, today the highlight is our wonderful panel. And therefore, I would like to call on the stage our first speaker, who is Ang Pang Kao, the Deputy Mayor of Taiyuan City and Chair of the Ecologistics Community. Welcome to.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very delighted and very pleased to be here. Many thanks go to ECLAY for giving us such a good chance to share the experience and common values with you. Let me first briefly introduce my city, Taoyuan. As long as you land on Taiwan, you are in Taoyuan City. We are an aero metropolitan city with a population more than 2,270,000 people. And the area is 1,220 square kilometers. Therefore, the population density is really relatively high. As you know, transport plays a huge role in carbon emissions and air pollution. The immigrants into my city, Taoyuan, are increasing due to good location and thriving and robust economic development. Taoyuan City holds 80% of domestic logistic companies. The rapid growth of the logistic industry in Taoyuan increased the road congestion, air pollution, and GHG emissions, putting climate at risk. Therefore, we are changing our transport modes. There exists a gradual replacement of gasoline vehicles with local carbon vehicles. And we have set up 75,000 electric vehicles registration. Therefore, we rank the first in Taiwan. The city has launched the public self-rental system, encouraging more people to use low pollution vehicles with 378 stations in the city and more than 49 million rides. In order to mitigate the negative impacts, Taoyuan, in partnership with the ECLAY's Ecologistics initiatives, has promoted the 8 foundational ecologistics is hard to pronounce. Principles as a clear pathway to the city's climate ambitions. We promote low carbon, people-centered, sustainable ecologistics with integrated urban freight planning and the public-private partnership. And we set up 5 eco-logistics demonstration projects. Each demonstration project has been selected in a variety of locations in the city, allowing for testing of various solutions in different environments. For instance, smart and shared warehousing systems, automation equipment, renewable energy, electric and hydrogen vehicles, and green architectures. In order to gain energy efficiency, we utilize intelligent systems. The smart traffic light system launched. The congestion and carbon emissions are effectively reduced. Finally, I would say, let us unite together, work together, and save the planet together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience as the Ecologistics chair, and also the importance of logistics in your city. The next speaker is Jeanette Sanz, and she is the deputy mayor of ecology, urban planning, infrastructure, and mobility in Barcelona. Welcome, Jeanette, and I look forward to speak to you.
Good morning, everyone. I have a presentation to show how we try to do to be a livable city. Today is my first day in Glasgow, and it's a pleasure to be here with you talking about the future of mobility, because it's very important for us to be a livable city. Creating a new mobility model is one of the most important challenges to reduce CO2 emissions. We can pass the first slide. Thank you. In Barcelona, we are developing a plan that will change the city as we know it, to adapt it to a 21st century city, Superilla project. In the following 2 years, we will gain 1 million meters squares of public space that use it to be dedicated to cars, and dedicated this space to sustainable mobility and green streets. The next slide, please. 1 out of 3 streets in the city will become green streets for pedestrians, green areas, and sustainable mobility by 2030. Every day, there are 1.4 million car rides in the city. It is urgent for the city to change its mobility model. The next slide, please. We are developing a sustainable mobility plan to promote biking and public transport. And how are we doing it? First of all, doubling biking lanes from 100 to almost 300 kilometers by 2023, promoting the public biking service. Almost 10% of Barcelona population are members of this service, and almost 10% of all journeys are done by bike, public and private. And we are finishing the construction of tram that will connect the opposite side of the city in less than 10 minutes, and it will reduce 2,000 daily cars. And we have more and better, faster buses with a new network buses. And we also have an electrification. The next slide, please. Sorry. We also have an electrification plan to ensure that if cars are used, at least they are electric. The city will multiply the current capacity of electric charging points by 5. Endoya Barcelona, for example, is a public management network of electric charging points, the largest in Spain, expecting to have 1,200 charging points public by 2024. And the next slide, please. And as public administration, we need to take the lead and electrify our vehicles. 80% of municipal vehicles will be electric in 2024, and 30% of public buses will be electric in 2024. Finally, the next slide. In summary, I think we are at a very important moment, and we need a new urban and mobility model. A new common sense travels around the world, and Barcelona is clearly committed to it. Our planet and our lives will not survive with a 20th century model under the conditions to the 21st century. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. And it's very exciting to see what are the plans of Barcelona. Already your walking and cycling is quite high, I think 35%. And hearing also the next plans are pretty, very ambitious and also very inspiring. So the next speaker then, it's still in Europe with Elisabetta Tromellini, and she's the head of a CSR sustainability department of FNM Group in Milan, Italy. So thank you, Stefania, for being here with us today, and I'm looking forward to hear more about your plans.
Good morning, and thank you to ECLAY for inviting me. And I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to present how FNM, the group, Italian group, is contributing to the race to decarbonize transportation. And also I would like to give a brief overview of the activity of the Sustainable Development Committee of UITP, which I chair. The next, please, the next slide, the next one again. Okay, here I just want to show you a short presentation who is FNM Group. Is a leading integrated sustainable mobility group in Lombardy. Is the first of an organization in Italy to combine railway infrastructure management with road transport and motorway infrastructure management. Here you can see all the core business segments. We have Rosco and services, leasing of rolling stocks in the local public transport and freight logistics sector. Then we have railway infrastructure management all around the Lombardy region and Veneto region, road passenger mobility, motorway infrastructure management. In the next slide, FNM, the group is investing a lot in new trains. By 2025, we will have 221 trains for an investment of more than 2 billion. And that will end in an improve of the quality of the service, but also the reduction of energy consumption. Here, I would like to show you a new project. It's called Izeo Hydrogen Valley. Is a new project for the company along the non-electrified railway line Brescia-Izeo-Edolo that is on the east part of Lombardy. And this project is aiming at decarbonizing public transport services and support the transition toward a more sustainable transport system. We will have 14 completely powered by hydrogen trains, in addition to 40 buses. And so we will decarbonize, we will offer a completely zero emission transportation in that valley. We will plan also to have hydrogen production plants in the same area. The next one. And here I would like to show you, this is an interesting concept of zero impact mobility on the railway of FNM, Ferrovie Nord Milano. And the group is offering a sustainable intermodal mobility service, which consists in a wide range of transport options, as you can see in the slide. It is possible in our station to combine 4 different services, which are bus, train, electric cars, and bicycle, avoiding the use of private car. Altogether, of course, provide passengers with environmental and economic advantages when compared with the use of private car. In the railway station, so you have the choice of all these transportation modes. We have to think that in a concept of mass that is mobility as a system which integrates various forms of transport services into a single mobility service accessible on demand. Mass is also a key element for FNM, but also digital integration, and it's a layer that UITP supports. The next slide, I would like to share with you the activity in, of course, about these topics of the Sustainable Development Committee, which I chair of UITP. That UITP is the worldwide association which put together all transport operators, authorities, industry all around the world. We have more than 1,800 associates. And sustainable development is at the heart of UITP activities. And we all cooperate and all issues related to urban transport, sustainable development to support the positive contribution public transport makes to sustainable development goals of Agenda 2030. And here the committee addresses global challenges, and under my presidency we operating in working groups with the following thematic priorities. We have renewable energy and energy transition in public transport. We have a working group, climate change mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. And those are, these 2 groups are already operating. And then we will think on start with another group on public transport contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals by the end of the year or beginning of next year. And the last one is a group recovering and restoring trust in public transport following COVID-19. This group is a kind of transversal with all the other committees of UITP, and I think we will work together to pursue our objectives. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Elisabetta, for this presentation. And also it's very exciting to see what you're doing in Lombardy, and it's yeah, and also the integration of the different modal transport is very important to have offer very attractive and convenient options. And we are moving across the ocean and we are going towards Manizales, Colombia. The next speaker is Juan Sebastian Ramos, Secretary of the Environment of Manizales, Colombia, and he will share more about their plans related to climate, but also transportation, how it's transportation playing a crucial role, and also on the low carbon action plan, urban freight. Thank you, Sebastian, Juan Sebastian, for joining us today, and the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning to Mr. Ang Pao from Toyan City, Janet from Barcelona, Clara from Buenos Aires, and Isabelita from the FNM from Milan. It is a great pleasure to be here today to talk about the world about Manizales. We are a city of 450,000 people. We are one of the medium cities in Colombia. And I would like to talk about our relationship with ECLAY. Next slide, please. We've been part of ECLAY since 1997. And in the last couple of years, we are the only city in Colombia that actually is working in two projects, Urban LEDs and Ecologistics. And this is a strategy that we've been working with other local governments around the country and the globe. Next one, please. What have we done with Urban LEDs? We've been working on, especially in three products, which is the greenhouse gas inventory, which is a project completely done as of now that has helped us a lot to make decisions for the city. Also, we have the vulnerability to climate risk. This is really important because our city has a lot of hills and we're next to a volcano, the Nevado del Ruiz, which is, it's constantly little earthquakes that actually have a lot of earth moving around. And this inventory will help us to actually take decisions on how can we protect the people of our city. And the last one is the integrated climate change management plan. This is, we're on 95% of finishing this product with ECLAY because as a city, and Colombia just last year approved the law of general climate change management policies. And we as a city, it's a great support from ECLAY towards this project that we can actually have the climate change plan for the future. Next slide, please. So what comes with the integrated climate change management plan? We take 5 important things that will make the city a city that is fighting against climate change towards mobility, health, green infrastructure, water resource management, and sustainable productive systems. Next slide, please. How do we harmonize with the challenge of COVID-19? And this is what we want to talk about. And why Manizales is a city that it's been on top of the line of changing things because of COVID. I know COVID, mayor, it was probably very difficult for you as a mayor to control this, and the same for all the cities around the globe. So we need to reactivate, and I want to show you how we are reactivating in Manizales. We made the pact for reactivation and development, and we will invest about $213 million US dollars on infrastructure that will give the city an impulse to recover from COVID. Next slide, please. The aerial cable line, we already have 2 lines in the city. And one of the most important things that for our government, which our mayor was around, it's to construct the 3rd line of aerial cable line. On this one, we'll spend about $41 million and we will create about 542 jobs. And its extension is about 2.4 kilometers, which is about 1.6 miles. And we'll have 4 stopovers. And this will give you around 70% more energy efficiency towards the other systems that we have. Next one, please. This is the water resource management treatment plan. This is a construction that has been due for the last 20 years. And we are the only government that we actually put all the effort on making a real issue, because we have an amazing river that crosses the city, but has been contaminated through the years. And it's the time to actually clean the water. People need clean water to actually live and survive. And by the construction of this treatment plant, we're making that possible. On this construction, we will create about 520 jobs, and we'll invest about also $40 million. And the spillover, what I mean with the spillover is that all the things that go around the construction of this plan will generate about $57 million through the process of the constructing the plant. And by this, we are going to treat 520 liters per second, but we're also going to get out of the river about 21 tons of organic loads that actually are on the river. Next one, please. Campus Manizales. I want to tell you about Manizales. We have 7 universities in the city. All of them are high quality universities. According to the education minister of Colombia, we're on the top level. So what we've been thinking about doing with this is to actually make Manizales a city that the people wants to go there to study and get their careers done. But what are we doing with this? We are going to unite all the universities through pedestrian infrastructure. Pedestrians are the people more vulnerable on the streets. Our city doesn't have that many infrastructure. So what we're trying to do with this project is that we're gonna construct a lot of infrastructure for pedestrians, but also bicycle lines and a lot of spaces, of green spaces like parks. So people have just a city that not only worries about pedestrians, but also that worries about personal growth. I mean by growth that you have spaces to actually share with people and that are secure for all. Next one, please. On this, we're about to create 106 jobs, and with campus 232, and we're talking about another investment of $10 million too. I want to thank ECLAY because all the support that they've given us in the last couple of years has helped us to actually get these projects going on. If it wasn't because of this support, we will be a little bit lost. So I want to appreciate, we appreciate all the help, all the support. We appreciate being with you all over here. You are great cities around the globe. Buenos Aires is a top city in South America, the same as Barcelona is a top of the cities in the world, and the same Taiwan, as the mayor chose, is a country that is developing really fast, and its cities also developing very well. So we want to thank you for this space.
Thank you very much for your presentation and also for sharing the all the different options that Manizales is bringing on the table for all the different for their citizens, from the campus to the cable cars and also and public transport in general. So the next speaker is Clara Muzio, and she is Minister of Public Space of Buenos Aires, Argentina. And I'm looking forward to hear about the plans of Argentina, of Buenos Aires in mobility.
Morning, everyone. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today with all of you great speakers. I'm so happy to be here to talk about how Buenos Aires is working in the sustainable mobility. But to talk about Buenos Aires, I want to say that Buenos Aires is a dynamic, complex city, 6 million people, thousands of buses, 1.6 million cars, and 40,000 taxis move around it every day. The mass transit system of the city and its metropolitan area is one of the largest in Latin America. We have a total of 9 million daily trips that start or end in our city. So our priority is to improve the system so it pollutes less and where commuters have a better, greener, safer, and more inclusive experience. Please, the next slide. In 2020, with the support of C40, we designed our climate action plan. This plan is in line with Argentinians' NDC and has a very ambitious goal. We aim to reduce 53% of our emissions by 2030 and 84% by 2050. Next slide, please. You can see all of our numbers about waste per day, about, well, our public spaces, our green public spaces, and then of the mobility and the energy in this slide. In Buenos Aires, transportation is responsible for around 30% of city emissions. Cars, of course, are the most relevant contaminant, as they emit 13.9% of the city total emissions. Next slide, please. Here you can see all the impacts of transportation of climate change in this slide. So for the last 10 years, we have promoted more efficient public transportation, cycling, and walkability. Next slide, please. And our clean mobility plan is the answer to this challenge. We applied an avoid, shift, improve approach. Avoid because we want to reduce unnecessary trips. Shifts because we believe in cultural change. We trust that it's possible. We promote active mobility and the use of public transportation. We have been working on sidewalks plan, creating new bike lanes and bus rapid transit in key areas of the city. Nowadays, we have 8 BRTs in the city and they have reduced over 231,000 tons of carbon dioxide per year. And here I want to say something about COVID-19. The pandemic, despite all his hardships, became an unexpected ally as walking and cycling became the first option when moving around the city. When COVID hit, we already had a bike lane network that ran for a total of 250 kilometers and a service of shared bikes. It was a huge success. In only a month, cyclists grew by 180%. And during the whole 2020, bike use went from 3.7 to 10.2%. Finally, improve. For those emissions that we can avoid or shift, our goal is to use more efficient technology. We aim for our 18,000 buses to be eventually run by electricity. Our main challenge is an adverse financial context, of course, in Argentina, but it's very clear that clean mobility is the future of mobility. Next slide, please. And as we all know, the pandemic forced us to attend to urgent challenges in record time, a true test to the resilience of our cities. As COVID began to slow down, we developed a strategy for returning to public space based on walkability. We executed quick and inexpensive interventions that were easy to implement and to replicate. We were able to adapt more than 400,000 square meters for pedestrians, pedestrian areas, fairs, new areas for the gastronomic sector, as you can see in the pictures, streets for kids around the parks and squares. We have been working on decentralizing the city for years, fostering each neighborhood's dynamic and cultural identity, progressing towards the 15-minute city model. And we keep on developing these initiatives. One of our priorities in the climate action plan is green urban infrastructure. We aim to continue to grow our urban forest by 20%, and we are also creating green streets, replacing tarmac with grass. Something are doing the same in Barcelona too. We are doing this kind of project, green streets. We want a greener city with informed and committed citizens who take up the responsibility of incorporating better and more sustainable habits. Because without informed and responsible citizens that want to make a difference and play the role in the transformation our planet needs, all these initiatives are pointless. So we are developing a city that prioritizes mobility and cycling and is sustainable and accessible. The next, it's okay. I think it's the last one. Inclusion is one of the key issues of the plan. We prioritize actions that improve conditions for our most climate vulnerable populations, looking for a fair and balanced progress for all without exception. And we want to continue to advance toward gender equality and strengthen diversity. You know, more than 60% of people who use public space and public transportation are women, and 100% of them have suffered street harassment at least one in their lifetime. This has to stop. All this transformation are paramount in a city that wants to be a regional leader in sustainability and that took on the challenge of becoming carbon neutral, resilient, and inclusive for 2050. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. It's very interesting to see how Buenos Aires has highlighted the importance of, or the positive outcome from COVID, or silver lining out of it, which is on walking and cycling, and the numbers are very impressive, from 3.7 to 10.2. It's almost triple. And also about how important it is to include also the inclusivity and the social aspects of mobility. So I would like to ask all the speakers to come on the stage, and so that we can start the panel discussion.
Sorry.
So we have heard a lot about all the different activities and plans that you are implementing already. And I wonder if, as a first question for this panel, we could ask you about what transport-related policies and initiatives are needed to accelerate progress towards sustainable transport, and what are the barriers in implementation. And I would like to ask first the city of Taiyuan, and then Elisabetta, and then some of our speakers are more confident in Spanish, and we want to, of course, accommodate this because the expertise is so rich that essentially there will be some interpretation with some of the speakers. So.
Okay, Taoyuan City government has encouraged people to buy low emission cars or electrical motorcycles. We subsidize the people to combine with the consumption voucher for the post and pandemic recovery. So we subsidize every citizen if he or she want to buy electrical motorcycles, then the government will have $1,000 subsidy. And we have set up 5 low emission, well, it's a feedback echoes. So I'll take it off. It bothers me quite a lot. Okay. Okay. So what just I said is our government make a lot of subsidies to citizens. He or she try to buy electric motorcycles or low emission cars. By the way, we have set up a lot of charging stations. For example, we have set up 48 charging stations in 133 public parking areas. What we are facing difficulty now is, as you know, the technology advancing is so quick, and the regulators try to have some regulations. Usually they cannot keep up. So this is the major difficulties we are facing.
Is this working? Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you for the question. First of all, I think we need more sensibilization and more political engagement. They go right through the role of the cities. Cities are very important, and they play a fundamental role on decarbonization. The best allies could be the territories, the communities, and many operators who every day they live in the cities, and we need to strike a kind of a sort of a deal to the cities to become our stakeholders, interested in making also the Paris Agreement more stringent. And like the previous speaker said, it's very important together to keep as a focus on for the ecological transitions policies, the sustainable mobility and the intermodality. Intermodality is the key point topics, and the need of recombine all of this in conjunction with, of course, digital solutions. At the end, I think it's very important also to stimulate ambition in education, and launching educational programs all school levels, teach young generation not just importance of the Paris Agreement, but also to adapt our lifestyle according. So I think those are the key points to push on the political agreement.
Thank you, Elisabetta. Thank you, Elisabetta, for highlighting all these different points. I wonder if Jeanette, would you like to share with us?
Muchas gracias. Bien, yo creo que ¿cuáles son, de qué manera podemos, ¿no? Reforzar, acelerar las acciones que estamos implementando? Primero debemos partir de una reflexión mínima, que es qué ha pasado en el siglo XX en nuestras ciudades, ¿no? Que han sido diseñadas para que pasen o para que aparquen coches. Y por tanto, ahora es el momento de plantear ese cambio radical en la estructura urbana, en el diseño urbano de nuestras ciudades. Y para ello debemos planificar las ciudades de un modo diferente, incluyendo seguramente aquellos actores que históricamente han sido excluidos de esa transformación, ¿no? Yo reivindico Barcelona como una ciudad que hace una política urbanística feminista, porque incorpora a las mujeres, a los niños y a las niñas y a la gente mayor, es decir, todos aquellos sectores de la población que nunca han sido prioritarios en el momento, ¿no? De definir quién manda en las ciudades, y por eso nosotros ahora lo que estamos haciendo es priorizar la vida, priorizar esa movilidad sostenible, priorizar el poder caminar, y la respuesta de la gente es positiva. El cambio de movilidad, el comportamiento en el cambio cultural de la movilidad ya se está dando en Barcelona. Estamos ya en niveles altísimos de uso de la bicicleta o el patinete, por ejemplo. Hemos recuperado los valores de uso del transporte público. La gente de Barcelona camina más que nunca. ¿Por qué? Porque es más fácil, porque está mejor conectada, porque tenemos más carriles bicicleta, tenemos mejores calles, y todo ello facilita que la gente se mueva de forma más ágil. Por tanto, para mí es un momento más que de barreras o de dificultades, de oportunidades. Y si hay ambición y voluntad política, el cambio es posible.
Muchas gracias, Janet. And thank you for highlighting the importance of having inclusive designs in cities and also the importance of how the response of people is good in cities. And I would like to hear the experience from Manizales.
Okay, Manizales, as a city, is a city that we've been a little bit down on or before we actually became government on the climate change issues. It's a city with a lot of old buses. Eventually, out of the 100% of emissions that the city produces right now, about 30% are only from public transportation. But out of that 30% of public transportation, it's about 50% that the old buses create emissions. So we're talking about that 20% of all the emissions of the city just comes from the buses on public transportation. So when we talk about policy, first, being working really hard on that, we're about to finish the master plan of public transportation, which was funded by Prosperity Fund from the UK. They put about 80% of the amount that the studies and it cost. So by this will give us the opportunity to have a plan for the future and how we're going to not only the intermodality that you were talking about is going to be included in this master plan, but also the gender wise. It's one of the, especially in Colombia, not all the cities have included the gender or the importance of gender in their public transportation. We're doing it right now. And it's been good, and many cities have come to us to tell us, hey, how you guys been working on that? Especially because we come of a city, you know, Manizales is in the coffee place where a lot of peasants come and they still have a mentality how do you say machista, like it's like a man's, yeah, like man's power, and we're trying to change that. So especially by the construction of this plan, which will become our biggest policy in public transportation, it has a lot of components that actually reivindicate not only the role of women, but also the role of, as I told you, pedestrians. We also including a big space for biking. Actually, the city council fought against the mayor because when pandemic started, we didn't have any infrastructure for bicycle, and we just put a line on paint in the middle of the most important road of the city, and everybody just came like, "Hey, why are you taking the road from the cars and the buses?" And actually, 1.5 years later, people respect the bicycle lane. And now, as I was showing you before, we're working on really making and constructing that infrastructure that will give dignity, not only pedestrians, but also people who ride some bike. And all of this becomes from having a real public transportation master plan that comes obviously with the aerial cable and buses. We're talking about on the implementation of this by 2031, that will reduce about 400,000 tons of emissions. So I think we're going the right way, and especially as policy that we're going to work on, that's the most important one.
Thank you. I look forward to being Manizales soon and see all the different changes. Clara, would you like to respond to this question as well?
Bueno, antes que nada, muy contenta de escuchar a todos mis compañeros hablar de género, ¿no? Y de la equidad. Y esto que decía antes, todas las mujeres hemos sufrido alguna vez en el espacio público o en transporte violencia. Entonces me parece fundamental que estemos hoy distintas ciudades del mundo hablando de este tema y poniendo este tema sobre la mesa, que es tan importante inclusive para la movilidad sustentable. Y la Ciudad de Buenos Aires tiene un plan de movilidad que es el Gender Mobility Plan, así que después puedo compartirlo. La Secretaría de Transporte se ocupa de llevarlo adelante, pero bueno, que busca evitar justamente eso, ¿no? Que las mujeres podamos movernos en la ciudad sin sufrir miedo, violencia o discriminación. Creo que para aportar alguna diferencia a lo que han hablado, lo que sí puedo hablar de la Ciudad de Buenos Aires, que también, por supuesto, ha incrementado el uso de la bicicleta, no solamente durante la pandemia, sino en los últimos años. En pandemia hemos sumado 17 kilómetros a los 250 existentes. Como decía, creció en un 30% el uso de la bicicleta y tenemos más de 400.000 viajes diarios en bicicleta y queremos para 2023 llegar a 1 millón de viajes diarios. Así que más que hablar de bicicleta, movilidad, intermodalidad, caminabilidad también, porque me parece que ya lo hablaron nuestros compañeros, hay algo importante que hablar, que es la inclusión de los barrios populares que nosotros tenemos en la ciudad, y es cómo llegamos con la movilidad también a esos barrios. Mi compañero de Manizales contaba algo al respecto, ¿no? De la necesidad de que todos sean incluidos en el espacio público, en el transporte público. Entonces nosotros hoy tenemos casos de éxitos en la ciudad, en donde ya 2 líneas de colectivo entran a uno de los barrios más vulnerables de la ciudad, y también el sistema público de bicicletas ha ingresado a los barrios, así que creo que es importante también poder hablar sobre estos temas y traer a la agenda climática cuestiones como género, inclusión, también asociados a la movilidad.
Thank you, Clara, for highlighting the importance of inclusion of also the most vulnerable users, and at the same time of re-highlighting the importance of cycling that happened during COVID-19. So the next question is also a question from the audience, and it's about how do we finance all this? Is there any innovative mechanism? And I will start here.
Okay, thank you. We offer some financial incentives to the industrial firms if they adopt the low emission technologies. The bank can offer a lower interest rate loan to them. By the way, I just mentioned to the consumer, we are the biggest subsidizer to subsidize the consumer to buy electric motorcycles. And this will have the chance to overcome the COVID-19, in order to resume the economic activities in the near future. Thanks.
Thank you very much for sharing this with us. Elisabetta, if you would like to add to this.
Yes, sorry. Okay, to answer to the question, certainly the next generation EU plan, the other national plans, the US investment plans, just to cite some example, represent a unique opportunity to proceed the path of investments. And we need to use resources to, of course, renew the fleets, buses, trains, and so on, for zero impact vehicles, but also to invest in research and technological innovation on renewable fuels, for this digitalization transportation. Public transport has to gain trust of user, because users are still today have a wrong perception of public transport linked to COVID infection. Can you hear me? Yes. So we need also a communication campaign, sanification strategies, which give us the possibility to regain the trust in public transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisabetta.
Sí, yo creo que esta es una pregunta muy importante por una cosa que decían antes tanto la compañera de Buenos Aires como de Manizales, porque me parece fundamental no dejar a nadie atrás, ¿no? En un contexto en el que las clases populares necesitan también ese apoyo para poder garantizar el derecho a la movilidad, ¿no? Nosotros a nivel local tenemos pocas competencias a la hora de generar nuevos impuestos o tasas que de alguna forma puedan linkarse después con la financiación del transporte público, ¿no? Pero sí que estamos estudiando, por ejemplo, la creación de una toxicity charge, ¿no? Como ha hecho ya Londres y ya ha impulsado Londres, para ver cómo eso se puede desarrollar, aunque lo tiene que implementar el gobierno de España, ¿no? O el gobierno catalán, el gobierno regional de Cataluña. Nosotros lo que estamos haciendo es promover, como mínimo, que se haga el estudio, que se haga el análisis de ver cuántos recursos podríamos inyectar directamente al transporte público. En la actualidad, proporcionalmente, la ciudad de Barcelona es quien más aporta al transporte metropolitano. Estamos poniendo alrededor de 180 millones de euros anuales, ¿no? Porque estamos comprometidos, estamos financiando incremento de servicios, pero necesitamos, evidentemente, que el resto de administraciones hagan su trabajo. A nivel catalán tenemos una ley aprobada desde el año 2017, ¿no? Que es la ley para luchar contra el cambio climático, y esta ley fija ya diferentes tasas e impuestos nuevos. De todos ellos, solo ahora en el año 2021 se ha impulsado uno, que es aquellas tasas que penalizan a los coches en función de sus emisiones de CO2. Nos falta, por ejemplo, penalizar a los cruceros. Barcelona, pensar que tenemos un problema enorme con esto y somos el puerto más contaminante de toda Europa en relación a los cruceros. Por tanto, deberíamos tener esa tasa implementada. También, por ejemplo, una tasa vinculada a los coches más contaminantes, no solo a CO2, sino también a otro tipo de partículas, ¿no? Como el NOx o las micropartículas. Por tanto, todo eso que nosotros estamos desarrollando, medidas restrictivas de acceso de esos coches contaminantes a la ciudad, deberían comportar mayor financiación para el transporte público, ¿no? Por tanto, nosotros invertimos nuestro presupuesto, pero necesitamos crear nuevos instrumentos que permitan fiscales, que permitan incorporar esto. Y ahí los estados son los que deben marcar las condiciones y hacerlo posible.
Thank you, Janet, for highlighting the importance of having the support also of the national and the regional governments, and also how the local governments can also start a bottom-up approach by defining the different studies and also do a cost-benefit analysis. Thank you also for highlighting some of the fiscal instruments that you are looking into, also the congestion charging, and also for highlighting what hasn't been highlighted today that much is the fact that Barcelona has one of the largest low emission zones in the south of Europe. Then I would like to ask if the city of Manizales would like to add to this question.
All right. To do infrastructure, to construct infrastructure, you need money. You need a lot of money. Infrastructure, especially green infrastructure, has been becoming expensive. So unfortunately, Manizales is a city that depends uniquely on own resources. By this mean housing taxes, what people pay when they own a house, right? That's where we get pretty much a resource for a budget. To do all the reactivation plan, which has a complex of different objects, we had to go on debt. We have to go to banks and ask them for money. About half of all the investment that we're going to make, about half we have to go on debt. So it's difficult because of the laws in Colombia. It's not possible that all the municipalities could do like different or create different taxes. It all depends on the national level. And especially in a country like Colombia, it's not popular for high governments to actually create more taxes. You know, the income in Colombia is not that high, so people will go on strikes right away. So we all depend on that, but we're making a huge effort on trying to do all this green infrastructure that I showed you before. It's our own effort and the effort of the people from Manizales. And I just want to tell you something. This year, we got the most money in history of the city when people pay their taxes, right? So it's really important because that gives us the opportunity not to get in too much debt and to actually make things real soon. The public transportation is a private business right as of now. So when I was telling you about the master plan that we're working on right now, it's going to be a really hard fight against bus owners because they will want, we have an over offer of buses through the city. The city has about 950 buses, but the study says that we only need 450. We're talking about that we're having the double of buses on streets that are not needed. And it's just because it's a business. So we're stopping with that and we're going to implement the master plan for public transportation. We don't subsidize bus rides to the people, but we subsidize somehow the aerial cable, a small amount of it. But also we have a public biking sharing system, which is there are only two free systems in Colombia. One of those is from Manizales. We spend a lot of money on cycling on the bike system. And this year, I manage the bike system, and we're working on renew all the bikes that we have because the system has been going on for 7 years. And this year we're going to change all bikes and have at least half of all the bike of the stock to be electrical. Why electrical? Because people on the outside of the city that live where the hills are and to get to downtown, they have to go up the way up the hills from either side of the city. So they say like, hey, in a normal bicycle, we can't go up there. We'll get sweaty and I wouldn't use it because of that. But by having electrical bikes, that will be a help for them to get equality, to get the system going to the most vulnerable neighborhoods in the city. So I think bikes transform lives and we're working on that too.
Thank you very much for sharing this experience and also for, it's very interesting and sort of very different also between Europe and Latin America, for instance, on how the public transport works and what you are what are you deciding on what you want to subsidize. And I'm very familiar also of the system of colectivos and all this informal public transport that is so necessary, but at the same time, yeah, sometimes there is a need to regulate better. And in the same time, it's also great that you have highlighted the incentives, but also, sorry, that there is a need for the bad to pay for the good, but also to have a system of incentives. And then last but not least, if you would like to share your insights, Clara, that would be fantastic.
Sí. A ver, al igual que Barcelona y Manizales, en el caso de Buenos Aires, el transporte público, todo lo que tiene que ver con la economía del transporte público y con los subsidios del transporte público es nacional, no tenemos injerencia en esa determinación, pero sí, un poco como comentaba mi compañera, sí realizamos estudios y modificamos algunas cuestiones exigimos al transporte, digamos, a la Secretaría de Transporte Nacional algunas cuestiones referidas al transporte público. Lo que sí ponemos de manifiesto es que el jefe de gobierno de la Ciudad de Buenos Aires, que va en su segundo mandato, Horacio Rodríguez Larreta, tiene una clara decisión de fomentar aquellas movilidades que son más limpias en la ciudad. Porque la mitad de los viajes que se realizan en la ciudad son de menos de 5 kilómetros. Entonces, por eso es tan importante que nosotros sigamos trabajando en nuestro plan de veredas accesibles, en el sistema público de bicicletas, que nosotros tenemos hoy 250 estaciones con más de 2.500 bicicletas, que son de acceso público para todos los vecinos y vecinas de la ciudad, y queremos llevarlo el próximo año a tener 400 estaciones con 4.000 bicicletas. Entonces, seguir apostando a esa movilidad que sí depende, por supuesto, de nuestros ingresos, que también son a través de los ingresos brutos, que es el tax que tienen los vecinos y vecinas de la ciudad. Pero creo que ese es el sentido. Y después que, por supuesto, desde la ciudad queremos hacer una inversión en buses eléctricos, 300 buses eléctricos para el 2023, pero siempre estamos atados, ¿no?, al tipo de cambio, a la incapacidad por acceder a un financiamiento público, si no es a través de los estados nacionales. Entonces, ahí sí siempre tenemos como si fuera un encordio, y por eso creo que es tan importante, sobre todo, y que estemos acá los gobiernos locales, es tan importante tener voz y voto en estos espacios de encuentro, que no solamente son los gobiernos nacionales los que pueden llegar a acceder a esos créditos, sino dar la discusión. Porque te pasa, por supuesto, en algunas regiones, sobre todo en Latinoamérica, que cuando no sos del mismo partido político, bueno, esos queda trabado. Entonces ahí hay algo, creo, muy interesante para que todos los líderes trabajemos juntos, en que no importa, digamos, el partido político que nosotros seamos, o sea, las políticas de cambio climático tienen que ser políticas a largo plazo, y que los ciudadanos no pueden ser rehenes de la política de turno. Así que yo creo que ahí hay algo también importante para conversar.
Thank you, Clara, for highlighting the importance of having a good climate plan that looks also at the long term, and also to show where the resources are and how you want to prioritize in your city. So we are running out of time. Actually, we already ran out of time, but perhaps if I would like to open the floor to the audience, if anyone would like to ask one question before the final remarks from the speakers. If I can ask you to keep it short. And,
yes,
yeah,
yes, very, very short question. I'm Martina Juvara. I'm representing the International Society of City and Regional Planners, ISOCARP. I would like to ask all of you how important it is to coordinate public transport, or the sustainable transport policies, with land use policies, the distribution of uses, etc. And especially how much does that matter in the small and medium-sized cities like Manizales that have less resourced?
Would you like to start, since you were called?
I didn't understand the last part. If you could repeat it.
I think it was about the public transport and the integration with land use planning, if I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's totally important, and it's got to be articulated, especially in a city like Manizales, where we have like two centers. We have like a downtown where most of the people work, where are the government buildings, where are some of the different companies that are around the city, and we also have like outside the town, outside town, we have the companies, actually the factories that many people work. So especially in a city like Manizales, which is a plan, but has all the neighborhoods on the sides of the city through the hills, it's really important, depending that the density of people in the day that work are separated like by about 10 miles or so, less than 10 miles, let's say about 8. So it's important when we actually doing the master plan for public transportation, it's important to actually do that. And it's actually in there, because what it's telling us is that we have 4 corridors through the city. And when they telling us which ways are going to have more public transportation, like more routes to move through the city, they'll go towards those 2 points of the city that have more of the people. But especially in those 2 places of the city is where all the commercial stuff's at, where there's not like agriculture around town. You got to be outside of town. We actually have the old Jeeps, the Jeeps really old from 1950s of World War II Jeeps that they all came into Colombia around 1960. They're used in the coffee, all the coffee land that I was telling you about, and those go through town at some point. So let's say that the agriculture is outside the city, and we have public transportation, which is private, but there's use of it. What we're trying to do with the master plan is also how can we integrate those old cars that they usually create a lot of emissions because they're old cars, they're on diesel. So we're thinking about how to 2030 we can change, because it's more than going towards climate change, especially to the people of the rural part of the city. It's how can we change a tradition that exists, and is what it makes our people. The transportation on Jeeps, it's what helped us to develop as a region. So it's really important to do that. And actually the master plan has it on depending where pretty much all the city goes economically.
Thank you for highlighting the master plan. Usually it combines all the different aspects of the different departments in a city. So that's a good way of integrating different plans, transportation, land use, environment, and so on. Janet?
Sí, yo creo que esta es una de las preguntas más importantes bueno, de cómo hacer, ¿no? De cómo permitir que las políticas urbanas, de transformación urbana y de movilidad vayan de la mano, vayan conjuntamente, ¿no? Nosotros tenemos una injusticia urbana en Barcelona que es espectacular. El 60% del espacio público de la ciudad está dedicada para que pasen o aparquen coches. Y eso es lo que estamos intentando revertir con cada una de las políticas. Tenemos un plan de movilidad general de toda la ciudad que reduce un 25% en el 2024, un 25% la presencia de los coches en toda Barcelona. Para ello hacemos la zona de bajas emisiones, impulsamos el transporte público, pero después las políticas de urbanismo, urbanísticas, tienen que priorizar que eso pase. Por ejemplo, ¿qué hemos hecho? Priorizar carriles de autobús exclusivos, donde solo pueden pasar autobuses. Hemos inaugurado esta última semana el primer túnel urbano solo con carril bus exclusivo. Es el primer túnel urbano europeo prácticamente que tiene un carril bus exclusivo. Y eso es una manera de cambiar. Cuando hacemos, por ejemplo, las aceras más anchas, le estamos quitando espacio al coche. Cuando permitimos que la actividad económica, como por ejemplo las terrazas que compiten con quien camina y las bajamos al espacio del coche, ¿no? Como antes también se explicaba en el caso de Buenos Aires, eso transforma la ciudad, cambia los usos y permite que vaya ganando espacio para la vida, ¿no? Y luego, también lo explicaba Manizales, el compañero de Manizales ahora, que es pensar muy bien la conectividad con todas las... O sea, nos hemos dado cuenta que la gente que más se mueve en coche, ¿no? Es en clave metropolitana y que va a áreas donde se concentran muchas empresas. Entonces, lo importante de conectar también esos espacios con mucho más transporte público. Por ejemplo, hemos impulsado, cuando no es de nuestra competencia, el metro. El metro no llegaba a esos barrios, a esas zonas más logísticas y más externas, ¿no? Pero, por ejemplo, también otro de los retos urbanos que tenemos inmediatamente es que las compañías de distribución de logística, por ejemplo, tipo Amazon, grandes compañías que utilizan y se sirven de nuestra infraestructura constantemente y no pagan nada, paguen por ello y por tanto hacerlas corresponsables del uso que hacen de la ciudad. Y en ese sentido es lo que nos permite reequilibrar, ¿no?, los usos de la ciudad e ir ganando terreno al coche, al uso privativo de coche contaminante para dárselo al transporte de la mayoría de las clases trabajadoras.
Thank you very much, Janet, for sharing the experience of Barcelona and also sharing how having a good goal and vision and then can helps aligning all the different plans. And at the same time, always highlighting how the most polluting type of mode of transport and should also contribute to creating livable cities. And perhaps we should close this session because we could continue on and on and on. And so perhaps I will skip my closing remarks. I would like instead to give you the floor for one sentence close from your side.
Okay, net zero emission is our goal. We should do our best to achieve that goal. Thank you.
Bueno, yo creo que el mensaje desde Barcelona es claro. Hay alternativa, se puede desarrollar. Barcelona está implementando un modelo que demuestra que la vida y la economía pueden ir de la mano y conseguir realmente que haya una transformación para poder conseguir unas ciudades habitables que no se acaben nunca en un contexto de emergencia climática que debemos afrontar y que debemos ser ejemplares como ciudades.
In a more general way, I think it's the political government desire to change the world, and by changing the world is to low emissions, but also educating the kids to learn that we only have one world, one planet, and if we don't take care of it, we're all going to be really bad. So it's in each person that our actions will make a better world, but also the government and political desire to make it real.
Bueno, hablando de cambios, el cambio nunca es fácil, el cambio es incómodo, pero el ser humano es una criatura asombrosa y hemos sabido adaptarnos y sobre todo la resiliencia que hemos tenido en los últimos 2 años para atravesar esta pandemia mundial, creo que demuestra de lo que somos capaces. Y todos tenemos que estar juntos en el mismo barco y tirar para el mismo lado. Así que yo creo que mi última reflexión sería que nuestro presente tiene que ser más sustentable, que es nuestra generación la que tiene que hacer la diferencia, porque el futuro tiene que ser sustentable, porque si no, no va a haber futuro. Muchas gracias.
In one sentence. No, it's just because I want to concentrate my answer. The fastest and most cost-efficient way to decarbonize people daily mobility and reduce CO2 pollutant emissions is to accelerate the shift toward a mass transit, multimodal mobility, walking and cycling.
Thank you, Elisabetta.
Thank
This
you.
is the perfect last sentence, and that wraps up and gathers all the other ideas as well. And thank you very much for staying much longer as well, and for all the insights. Thank you to the audience for being here, and also for the online audience for all the questions. Some of the questions have not been addressed, but then we will also share them with the speakers. And yeah, thank you very much. And thank you also to the technical team behind the scenes, not only at the click here, but and also all the logistics and organizational part, but also the team back in Bonn, and the one in Brazil that helped to put together this session. Thank you very much, everyone.